Okay, recording this video on Sunday, the 26th of November, 2023, just gone 7:32 a.m. Chicago time. Do hope you are doing well. So it's the weekend and time for another weekend futures market recap, where I go through 15 of the largest futures markets and I show you what I'm seeing on my charts. Obviously, this week we had Thanksgiving in the US, and so things were a little bit quiet, but we did end up the week up, powered ahead, and we're a little bit overbought. Still in a confirmed uptrend on all the higher time frame charts, but I'll show you on the lower time frame charts we're getting to a little bit of an overbought situation. We're likely to have a little bit of a pullback. I did think the same thing last weekend. I thought we'd have a little bit more of a pullback this week, but never really eventuated. Anyway, let me show you what we're seeing on the Emini charts before getting to the tip bar charts and the signals. So here's the daily chart. Traditional setup of the better indicators here with two panels side by side, everything to do with volume on the left hand side, everything to do with price on the right hand side. And when we've got volume and price both in an uptrend, the background is printed in red. You can see that after our sell-off with our exhaustion sell down here, we've broken into a confirmed uptrend on both price and volume. But we should at some point find some resistance here coming in from the cross on the intermediate time frame. Again, a little bit of a broken record, because this is what I was saying last weekend, that we were likely to find some local top for the time being when that plays in. So it's not happened yet. We haven't had a confirmation yet. We're still just showing this resistance on the lowest time frame. We haven't had this one pop up on the intermediate time frame, which would flip to the other side of this support on the intermediate time frame. So that's what I'll be looking for with this week's trade on the higher time frames. We go down to the 135-minute chart. We're above resistance on the lowest and the intermediate time frame here. So here's the lowest time frame. We broke above that resistance, and we're above resistance on the intermediate time frame. These bars up here are showing amateur bars, very low average trade size. Obviously, for Friday's activity post Thanksgiving weekend, it's going to be very light trading. We're still in an uptrend. We've still got to make pullback to end of trend on the low and the intermediate time frame here. We're going to have to make pullback to end of trend eventually, and that could play into this resistance that's coming up on the highest time frame here, as we've got these thick lines on better sine waves starting to cross. They maxed out here at plus 100. They're starting to cross, and that would show some area of resistance. 45-minute chart here we can see was putting in a whole series of pullback to end of trends on the lowest time frame. And we also have a whole family this week's activity of Rambo patterns. Don't know how many there are in a row there, but there's quite a few. I think that was Monday's trade. We've gone up and just made more and more amateur up bars into these highs. And I'll also talk about the low of the amateur bars that make up the Rambo patterns. So here, this level at the low here, let's say 45.25 area is going to be key. It's quite a ways away from where we are now, but it's just showing that we're maxing out in terms of amateurs driving the move up here, and it's suspect. We've also got our pullback to end of trends, but if we have any dip back down, what we'll be waiting for is the pullback level on the intermediate time frame to come here on the 45-minute chart before having another push back up to test. So this is like a left shoulder of this move, and then we'll come back, pull back to test those highs, and that'll be ahead of a traditional head and shoulder moves with a shoulder, head, shoulder move going on there. 15-minute chart, and this is where we start to mark the beginnings, the ends of the weeks with the vertical lines in yellow here. You can see all of this week's activity was all amateur bars up here at these highs, and the trailing stop on Better Prime is miles away. We've had no blue professional bars for a while. So, but here again, you can just see more end of trends starting to come in on better sine wave here on the 15-minute chart. We've made a whole series. This first grouping here, pullback to end of trends on the lowest time frame, followed by a little pullback to end of trend on the intermediate time frame. That didn't do enough damage. We only dropped down to support on the intermediate time frame, came back up for another break here, another pullback to end of trend on the low and the intermediate time frame, and finally another low and intermediate time frame here. They don't necessarily mean that they are end of trends leading to a reversal of trend. All it means is that the trend at that point is exhausted, will go through a little bit of congestion, and some of those moves will then reverse and turn into trending moves the other way. But it just means that we've had a little bit of exhaustion, we rest for a little while, we break to another area of resistance, we rest for a while, and we're waiting for the next move here. And you can see here we've got an intermediate support level that's come in here. And what's that number? That is 62.25. So that's pretty important there. If we start dropping through that into a downtrend, then the next area we're going to be held on the 15-minute chart is where these thick lines, the highest time frame, come back to a negative 100 cross, and we'll find an area of support and we'll push back up. My guess is this move on the upside has been led by the amateurs. We'd come back down an area where the professionals would step in, and the professionals will step in, we'll have a blue professional bar, and they will trail up the stop here on Better Pro-Am. So this trail stop would trail back up to wherever that blue professional bar came in there. And then finally on the 13,500 tip bar chart, again this week's activity here, you can see here we did have blue professional bars at the beginning of the week, dropped off, never really went anywhere. We pushed back to new highs, more amateur bars at these highs, but here you can see we've got a whole family of just end of trends going off, pullback trend of trend on the low, on the high, on the intermediate time frames, all coming in here, just saying that this area is an area where we've played out for the time being, and we expect a little bit of a drop off until we get maybe an exhaustion pattern, blue professional bars, something like that coming in. Last week it felt the same thing. We had Rambo patterns into those highs, we had exhaustion, buy and bearish divergence come in. Not a whole bunch of blue professional bars, but we were at a little bit of a tipping point at this point. But any little weakness that we had at the beginning of the week, we were held by this support on the highest time frame and pushed back up. Remember, we are in this phase of a seasonal strength pattern. Around holidays, market always tends to be a little bit bullish. That's because of the mass psychology of people feeling good around holiday times. And this is a traditional one of the 5 seasonal patterns that I look at around the Thanksgiving holiday period. And it runs usually till about the 10th of December. Strength in the market. As I said, all of these charts on the E-mini are showing us in an uptrend. The background is in red. If we go from the daily, here we go, background in red, 135-minute chart, background in red, 45-minute chart, background in red, 15, the whole thing is red, and finally here red on the 13,500 tip bar chart. Just shows the market is super strong at the moment, and so any dip that we'll have is likely to be held. The professionals will come in, support the market, and will push back up again. And so this window of seasonal bullishness traditionally runs up until about the 10th of December or so. So I wouldn't be surprised for that to be what plays out. Watch out just for the time being, because we are really a little bit overboard with all of these end of trends patterns happening here. We could easily have a little bit of a drop off. So there we go. That's thoughts on the E-mini charts daily all the way down to the 13,500 tip bar charts. Let's have a look at some signals starting with the Forex market. So we're starting with the euro. So the euro's been pretty strong over the last 2 or 3 weeks, ever since the market turned around. We had a signal short at the beginning of this week. Signal short's triple signal made up of the 3 non-correlated indicators all coming together. We've got our exhaustion buy bearish divergence on better momentum. That's number 1. We've got blue professional bars at the highs that the trailing stop gets broken, number 2. And we're overbought on better sine wave with the background in grey. And that's what gives us our triple signal here. Round was a pretty nice little trade to the downside. We trailed our stop down, and then we got stopped out here when it moved back up to 109, and the market's looking strong again. So it looks like on the euro we're going to come back, push back up, test into those highs, and just see where this goes before we see another signal short. British pound and all of these markets have been following a similar pattern. Weakness last week that didn't really run very far. This week what was interesting on the pound was we had this U-turn here. In the UK, is that their autumn statement, the treasurer comes in, makes a statement. There are very smallish changes to tax system in the UK, nothing major, but clearly enough to cause a bit of a U-turn here. Blue professional bars forcing it down, picking it up at the lows, and then buying all the way through the turn there. And the British pounds ended up at over 26 here. So British pound still in an uptrend. Bars are in red, which means better sine wave is showing an uptrend. So the Aussie dollar here did signal short this week, but it's not a classic because we didn't really see blue professional bars at the highs, no exhaustion buy at those highs. It was just playing off that pattern, the blue professional bars momentarily being broken, and then we break back up into an uptrend. So not a classic signal there. So we're still showing strength in the Aussie dollar. So those 3 currencies still showing strength, which means the US dollar is showing weakness. Japanese yen's interesting here. Beginning of this week, we had signals short, and eventually it did turn down. And we've held at this area here. Blue professional bars have stepped in 67 or so. Not oversold on the downside. We don't have exhaustion sell on the downside, but it's an area of support at the moment. So let's see if that kind of pushes back up to have another signal short on Japanese yen. So E-mini now, 13,500 tip bar chart. No signals this week. And you can see the amount of activity that we had this week was pretty muted. Last week and the week before, you can see the number of tick bars that go through with the number of bars here. The length from yellow line to yellow line here is pretty long, but this was pretty short, about 2/3 of the normal trades going through this week, and we've had no signal. Exhaustion buy came in here. It's overbought at that point, but we've had an exhaustion sell here in the meantime, so we'll need to go through that whole pattern again in order to generate a signal short on the E-mini there. 10-year notes. 10-year notes, so we had a signal at the end of last week with some weakness, didn't really run anywhere, wasn't a classic in terms of blue professional bars taking profits at the highs here. This one isn't a classic in terms of blue professional bars at the highs here, and so we've not generated signals this week. It's dropped off. So let's see if we get some blue professional bars finding a low down here and we signal long in the meantime. So that's 10 years. Now, gold and silver. Gold and silver, we had nice signals 2 weeks ago here into these lows. That ended up being a nice trade. And here we've got a whole bunch of blue professional bars coming at the highs. Exhaustion buy, we're overbought. We just need to break a trailing stop in order to generate a signal there on gold, but that's not happened yet. Silver also strong at the moment, but we did have a signal here. Some blue professional bars at the highs here, not a lot there. That's what generated our signal short when we got the bearish divergence. But again, not a classic pattern there. But this move up with a whole bunch more blue professional bars potentially taking profits here at 24.5. It's interesting to see if that generates another signal short on silver. It's been a nice rally on the precious metals. Bitcoin, we had a short signal here, but didn't go anywhere. We dropped off pretty hard, but exhaustion sell stepped in. We come back up. A little bit in no man's land at the moment. No blue professional bars to tell us what's really going on here on Bitcoin. Then crude with all of the problems in the Middle East, you'd have thought it'd be really strengthening, but it's not at all. This signal last week long didn't work out. We dropped down here to 73. We had another weak move down. We're testing into this 74 area now. At least a whole bunch of blue professional bars have come in here. We've got exhaustion sell, bullish divergence. Couldn't break through the trailing stop. We've got to go oversold at this point. So let's see if crude signals long this week. But it's been remarkable given that geopolitical uncertainty in the Middle East that crude is not stronger than it is. Now, last week in natural gas, we had all these triple signals go off, bang, 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 and the market really sold off hard. But we're down just under $3. The blue professional bars step in here. We haven't had exhaustion sell at this point, so we haven't generated a signal yet on natural gas. Let's see if that happens this week. And copper. So copper, you can see 2 weeks ago at the beginning of the week, we had a triple signal long. I didn't particularly like that signal because there weren't a whole bunch of blue professional bars at the lows, but it really did take off as soon as the blue professional bars stepped in here, and we moved up here to 380s. And blue professional bars, exhaustion buy happened, bearish divergence, got a triple signal. Not super convincing in terms of the amount of blue professional bars at those highs. But let's see if we get a stair-step trade here coming back up. Blue professional bars kind of stepping in to sell it down on a retrace, and this continues lower on copper. And then lastly, the ags. Ags have all been pretty weak this week. No signals on corn. Blue professional bars at those highs come back up under the lip trade here, and the market weakens in corn. In soybeans, we had a signal 2 weeks ago at those highs. Exhaustion buy, bearish divergence, blue professional bars, break the trailing stop, bang. We didn't get a reversal signal here, although we had a whole bunch of blue professional bars coming in. There was no exhaustion sell at that point. And so on this retrace, the blue professional bars kind of come in and the market weakens again underneath the lip here on soybeans. And then lastly, wheat. Well, we had a signal this week on wheat. All the blue professional bars come in here. Blue professional bars kind of buy the breakout, come back out into that region where the blue professional bars kind of stepped in. So this has to hold. So let's see if that kind of makes a move back up to break through 590 or so on wheat. So I think you can see we are overbought on the E-mini and due for a little bit of weakness, but I do expect professional activity to step in on any weakness. So it might be temporary, but we might get a signal kind of early this week on the E-mini, and it might be followed up with signals with the euro, British pound, Aussie dollar, but we do need to see some blue professional bars coming in before generating another signal short on those forex charts. But That would be something I'd be looking for this week. And then let's see what happens with crude. Whether crude tests back down into this region, more blue professional bars come in and hold it in the mid 70s to see if we get a little bit of a rally in crude. So there we go. Thoughts on the markets and the charts. Hope your trading is going well and looking forward to next week's trade.